Here we are with a case study from West Auckland. This was a property I named Raspberry Lane. It was in Te Atatū South, and I lived there from late 2021. I think it might have been November until the middle of 2022. I think it was around June. And for the whole of that time, I was also living in Tuaku in the country and commuting backwards and forwards 1 week at each property. I was still working in Auckland. I had clients I needed to help, both Auckland Council and Mrs. D's Bird Sanctuary. I was still doing consultations and workshops in Auckland and then back to the farm. So it was a bit of a crazy lifestyle. Now, when I moved in, I was the first tenant at this property. It was a little house. I don't think it's a tiny house, just a little house made from containers, like two containers together. So it's you'll see the layout. Anyway, this was what the section looked like when I moved in. And as you can see, there's this fence right in the middle. It's actually, the fence was right up against a grapefruit tree, and behind the fence was just a wilderness. It looked like jungle. And me being me, I had to go explore the jungle. And I think it was day two, I discovered this wall. And it was like that secret garden moment of, oh, somebody's actually put a lot of time and energy into building this wall. I wonder how far the wall goes. And so day by day, I filled up bags of rubbish. It was not rubbish, bags of garden waste. There was a huge amount of jasmine. There were other plants I'll have to list in the notes below. Sorry, just making myself a note. And previous tenants on this property had also used it as a dumping ground, so there was a lot of rubbish. You can see the polystyrene box. I dug out lots of polystyrene. I dug out clothing and plastic bags. It was pretty gross. I found a plastic bag that had salad greens in it, and the date, it was exactly 10 years later, so it was dated 2011. Bizarre. So there was a lot of material that needed to be composted, and one of the things that drew me to this property was this 3-bay compost system surrounded with these heavy duty concrete blocks. It had been very carefully made at some point. So it was like, yes, I've got a compost classroom with a house all set to go. But it was a beautiful space to live and a wonderful experience. And I got on really, really well with my landlord, who lived in the house at the front of the property. And he had tenants in the sort of basement that he'd converted into a little flat as well. So I did the hot composting in these 3 bays, and then my food scraps. Oh, that's the next screen. Then the most invasive weeds. I think I had jasmine in this bag here. These 2 blue barrels were a trial I ran with Tradescantia, which is sometimes called Wandering Jew. So the one on the left, oh, I can't read the writing. One of them has sheep manure and the other one doesn't. And I wanted to see what the quality of soil was like if we mix animal manure in with the plant material. And I've got that written up as a blog post. I will link to that article as well. So just like I talk about in the step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the holistic weed management strategy, is to take a piece of the plant, bring it inside, and become mesmerized with it. So that's what I did with the Tradescantia. Next slide. This was my food scrap composting, and it was also my teaching space, compost classroom, that even though I didn't have a lot of food scraps, I wanted to be able to demonstrate these different methods. We had a rat in this one that crawled from the property next door. So that was an example of how this style of compost bin is so not rodent proof. And I put my food scraps into this tumbling composter. And then, okay, some before and after shots. So that was the slide I showed at the beginning where it was just all overgrown. As I cleared the weeds, we removed that fence. It was a beautiful wide walkway. It had once been a stunning garden, and I actually managed to track down the original owners of the house. So this was an amazing experience. It's one of those suburbs of Auckland where people moved there in the early 80s and built the house of their dreams and never left. And so the couple who built this house, either late 70s, early 80s, um, they had sold maybe 10, 10 or 15 years before I moved in. But they were thrilled to be able to come and meet the current owner of the house. They brought photos. They actually brought the original house plans, handed them over to the current owner, who was also a not a builder. He was a professional painter, but he did all his own sort of DIY renovations and had shifted things around quite dramatically inside the house. So yeah, let's look at 1982. This was a swimming pool. It was the neighborhood come over and play and have a swim. And where my little house was used to be a child's playhouse. That I loved this feeling of being in a corner of this residential property that had always been a playhouse. So obviously at some point the pool got filled in and the garden became neglected. But this photo here is a little playhouse, and there are the three compost space. And then this was a beautifully landscaped garden going up. So my landlord, Mike, he built this big deck that it was just the most amazing space to relax, pull the doors right open and feel like I was kind of in the garden a lot of the time. I had container gardens set up around here. I did some filming for some of my online courses, and I was actually able to let each of my kids come and stay here when they needed somewhere to crash. So for a while, Sophie and I were both here for a couple of weeks. Sophie was in a tent outside on the grass. Jessica and Hazel's my granddaughter, came and stayed here as well. So it was perfect to literally have a crash pad in the city. Okay, we need to look at the weeds. So that's that stone wall that I uncovered. So the wilderness, there was a fence all the way along here, and as we removed the fence, my landlords out here in Tuakau in the country said, "Oh, we'll take that," and it's now part of the chicken run. Um, so that is pretty much it for the case study. A little interesting story here. So I moved out of my Tirarangi home. I think I had to be out by the end of July 2021, and I moved in here in November. I moved out to the country end of October. So there was another property that I stayed at for 3 months, another customer who had a studio in her garden. And this photo on the left was a picture I took there for that interim period when I was thinking, okay, where am I going to live? Where am I going to live? Found out I was about to become a grandmother and I needed a little bit of space. So this was the long lockdown we had in Auckland in 2021, that I picked up a piece of Tradescantia and drew it and studied it and was like, oh, I want more Tradescantia to play with. And then lo and behold, I end up living in a garden with a lot of it. So that, with the measuring tape there, that was me experimenting with, can I grow Tradescantia from a piece that's 2 centimeters long? And I don't think I did, but then I would leave it while I came back to the countryside for a week and then go back and, open up the house and everything's sort of a little bit hot and stuffy, that it didn't get the TLC it really should have had. This is the garden where I first did this woven effect on the chicken wire. Love that so much. And this is a photo. This is the property. Oh, this is the time when I began using the nature communication practice quite consistently. I would come out and sit under the grapefruit tree, and the grapefruit tree had told me this. Like, the image I got was it wanted to wear jewelry, and that was just the strangest thing to me. And I ended up having a session with my teacher Saskia and saying, how can this tree want to wear necklaces? This makes no sense to me. And she confirmed that yes, if this tree were a human, it would be like a drag queen. So I had necklaces dangling from the branches, and it sparkled. And even though I don't live there anymore, I kind of tuned in with the tree around Christmas time, and I just got this feeling that someone had put Christmas lights on it, and it was glowing and full of joy. I need to get in touch with Mike, the old landlord, and see if the tenants actually put up Christmas lights, or if that was something the tree was, I don't know, sensing across the road or somewhere, and dreamed of having Christmas lights. So there was another tree that I was talking to, the cedar. Oh, but it was actually the grapefruit tree that sort of had this air of being a royalty and wanted me to host house concerts. Like, it wanted to be performed, it wanted music. And so I would sit outside and play my recorder, and actually wrote out sort of a little concert program, and treated it like it was a concert. Like, you want a concert? I'll give you a concert. If you're new to this sort of nature communication side of my work, it's pretty weird. A lot of it I don't talk about in the moment. It's only months later, once I've seen something work, that I go, oh yeah, this happened. Did you know trees like music? So this is the layout for some of the online courses where I was recording container gardening, seed sowing, DIY potting mix, small-scale biodynamics. For a while, I was thinking of using this to create a course called Balcony Biodynamics, or Biodynamics on Your Balcony. And then on the left here, a photo of how the jasmine and the Tradescantia sort of inspired this photo shoot style of elevating soil to become something beautiful and delicious. Like, I wanted these little garden tools to almost look like we were cutting into a little precious cake of compost. So yeah, that is the case study for Raspberry Lane. If you have any questions, please get in touch or hop over to the Blue Borage Gardening Facebook group.